This is Daniel, the founder of Bookkeeping for Painters. And today I'm here with Jason Kramer, founder and CEO of Cultivize, a consulting firm specializing in lead nurturing and CRM implementation. With over 20 years of experience, Jason has worked with global and local brands to help bridge the gap between marketing and sales. And he's here to share his insights on optimizing the sales process and how to identify poor performing marketing campaigns. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Daniel. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to jump into it. I love the topics for today, talking about sales process, marketing, CRMs. Super excited. Um, can you give me what are some just general tips on optimizing a sales process? Like what should we be thinking about when we're trying to improve our sales process? Because I know a lot of folks, you know, they are a little bit intimidated by the sales process. Some folks are still just sending estimates in via email. They're not presenting on the spot. Maybe they don't have a very good follow-up software that kind of helps them follow up with prospects once they provided that estimate. What are some things should we be thinking about to optimize that sales process?
So we deal with a lot of home service-based businesses. And so one of the things we know is you're always chasing that next lead, right? And a lot of times, if you are in a sales role, you might be, going from house to house, right? And doing those quotes. And so trying to keep track of everything becomes difficult. And even when you get back to the office, you're tired or other things may come up. So one of the things we always look for, and when we start talking to a potential new client, is what are they doing now to follow up with all the leads they have? And how would they even classify a lead? There are some companies that I'm sure are listening today that get leads from their website, or they get phone calls kind of inbound, right? And so you might consider that as a lead, but how do you qualify that, right? Just because they're calling, maybe they don't have the budget to work with you, or maybe they just need one small corner of their kitchen painted, but you're not coming in unless you need to paint like a whole room as your minimum. So, I think part of it is identifying first, how do you qualify leads to make sure that the leads that are going into your sales process are qualified. What we often sometimes see happen, Daniel, is that you can spend weeks or months chasing a potential client that isn't even have the capacity to work with you because you can't help them with the services you provide. They can't afford you, any number of other reasons. Maybe they're even geographically out of your area. A painter is not going to travel 100 miles to go paint a house for $5,000, probably, right? It's not financially, it doesn't make sense. So when we talk about the sales process, we talk about what are all the steps in order to acquire that lead, right? That potential customer, and the steps to actually win that business. And so some of the simple things that we often look at is you get a lead. In the world of painting, unless you're maybe more sophisticated, you might need to go and do an in-home visit to actually see what needs to be done to do an estimate. You need to write the estimate. As you mentioned, some people are emailing it. Some people might be even doing it by hand, right, on a piece of paper. So what is your process to actually create an estimate? What is the process to follow up with that estimate? And then for the people that don't say yes right away, you need to build a process to nurture and to automate that follow-up. Especially if it's a larger job, they might be getting multiple bids. And it might be something they want to do, once tax season hits and they get some extra cash in their pocket. So you need a system in place to what we call nurture those people. And it's not hounding them saying, hey, Daniel, you're ready to do the job. It's how can we help you? What answers, questions do you have? What answers we can provide just to make them feel comfortable. And so none of those things are difficult, Daniel. It's just about the repetitive process to do those and having a system that's going to help you keep yourself accountable as the salesperson, but also to keep the whole organization as the company accountable as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially with, a lot of folks, their average job size is $5,000 to $10,000. And for a homeowner, that's a big investment. So their buying cycle, might be kind of long. They might sit on it for a while before they actually decide to paint, finally pull the trigger on painting their house, the full exterior of their home or full interior of their home. So you might have to nurture them for a while, which you mentioned. And if you're doing a lot of estimates, you're doing, estimates every day, that can be a lot of people to nurture simultaneously. So having ability to automate that, it can make your life a lot easier.
Yeah,
So
not only that, also, I think it helps prevent against what we call pipeline leakage, right? So you're putting all this time in, whether you're door knocking, whether you're, doing direct mail, you're doing, Facebook advertising, whatever you're doing, you're spending money and time to generate these leads. And so, for example, we just started working over the summer with a roofing company. As I mentioned, we work with a lot of different home service industries. And so roofing is one, pool construction is another, painting, of course, but so this roofing company does about 1,000 quotes a year, is what they told us before they started working with them. They were tracking everything with a Google sheet, but it was all manual. And there was no way to really keep track of everything once it got past, hey, we sent them a proposal. I was just on a phone call with the owner today, and they do about $7 million a year in business, this company. And so what we looked at in the pipeline was we built another stage for them, Daniel, for the back burner, the people that didn't say no, they just haven't made a decision yet. I don't know if you want to take a guess, but they got over $1.5 million worth of bids in that back burner pipeline that 8 months ago, before they were working with us, they would have had to just forgotten about. They wouldn't have even had any insight to keep track of all that. So not only did they close about $5 million so far this year in business, they got another like 1.5 that's just sitting there. Even if they closed 10% of it, right? It's still business that they would not have had if they didn't have a way to keep track of all of those things.
yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think a lot of painting businesses, they neglect, which you mentioned, the prospects, your list of prospects, people who haven't signed up with you yet, that list of folks that you send them an estimate, but they haven't signed the proposal yet. Then
Yeah.
you also even have your current customers who have done business with you and maybe will do business with you in the future if you ever reach out to them. I feel like a lot of painting businesses have that huge list of customers, which is probably the most valuable thing in their business, but they never send them any kind of newsletter to or offer to see if they want to, paint their interior now since they have painted their exterior a couple of years ago. That's another huge opportunity. I think that can
Yeah.
a good system or process could help bring in thousands, if not millions of dollars every year.
And if I can just mention that, I'm glad you brought that up because the world of personalization, which I'm sure you've spoken about with other guests and those listening have heard, kind of the buzzword of personalization when it comes to marketing and sales is so important. And it's really in the rise, especially with AI and all these different, capabilities of CRMs. But let's paint a picture of this quick story. And I'll give the visual because your audience is in the visual business, right? They're painting beautiful homes. But let's say you go into a home and you get hired to paint the kitchen or the living room. You're going to probably look around and make observations, right? If you had this thought process in advance, and if you had a CRM where you can check off exterior needs painting, notice chipping, or we notice that the ceiling, is textured, offer to skim coat and sand off the ceiling to make it look more modern. Well, if you recorded all this information as you're doing to your point, to your sale to your customer, you can then use your CRM to automate that, right? And you could create that repetitive process where it's not just sending an email like a newsletter, which it could do, but it could say, hey, Jason, thank you so much for letting us come into your home and paint your living room. While we were there, we noticed blank. And the CRM could automatically insert in an issue with your ceiling, an issue with paint peeling and cracking on your foundation. We'd love to provide an estimate if you're interested. Let us know. Um, the other thing too is painting isn't forever, meaning you're going to have to paint again eventually. And so you could also create reminders where, okay, we did, the highest quality paint we could do. It's going to guarantee you 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. So in 5 years, an email goes out. Hey, we know we did the job for you 5 years ago. If you need any touch-ups or if you'd like a fresh coat put over that, we'd be more than happy to come in. It's the same thing with like our pool construction clients, right? Liners don't last forever. Pools have parts that need to be replaced every number of years. Same thing with painting, like you eventually will need to be repainted. So if they were happy with you, why not go back and try to upsell them to do the painting job again?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's basically recurring revenue, which is huge for the value of your business, being able to
absolutely. Yeah.
reactivate those customers. And if you can set them up in a CRM and just have them nurture on like a 5 or even maybe a 10-year cycle of just sending, key pieces of communication,
Hmm.
along those certain, when we expect they should need a power wash, or when we think that they'll need another coat of paint, that sort of thing,
Yeah,
and sending out offers on those particular points. That could be something you could set up once, and then that would pay you for years to come.
absolutely. Yeah,
And we've mentioned this word a couple of times, CRM. Could we just break, because I get a lot of questions about CRM. What CRM should I do? What should I choose? How should I select it? Which one is the best one? What is a CRM? Even
yeah.
because it can be confusing, because there's softwares, and some of them do different things than others. And so could you kind of just give us what should a CRM be doing for us?
Sure. So, in my definition, a CRM is going to have three components. It's going to have a place to store all of your contacts. And it's not just leads, it could be even relationships with vendors, with other people. Okay. It's going to have information about them, their contact information, a place for you to keep notes. It's going to keep tabs on activity, last time you spoke with them, projects you've done together, etc. It's also going to have a sales component. So it's going to have the ability to track your sales pipeline, all of the deals that are coming through, all of the leads, where they sit in the sales process, how much revenue is being generated, from everything that's out there. Um, in terms of projecting revenue, right, based on the bids you've done versus what you've won, what you've lost. You talked before about the length of that sales cycle. A good CRM is going to be able to tell you it takes on average 2 weeks to close, 6 weeks to close, right? So you can actually refine your sales process. And the last piece of a CRM, in my opinion, it should have an email marketing component. It should have the ability to send out, whether it be monthly emails, automated, what we call like drip nurture emails, to educate and to influence somebody to do business with you. And the reason you want to have the email component in your CRM is that a good CRM will be able to tell the sales team, or even you as the owner, who in your database of hundreds or thousands of people is going to the website frequently, who's going to look at your portfolios, who's clicking on your Google reviews. And if you knew who was raising your hand to express interest in doing business with you before they even called, that's a huge leg up, right? You're more likely to close that business with that person. Um, Other things outside of that, especially in painting and other home service categories, Daniel, there's a lot of specific industry related, what I would call, they would call CRM systems, but I don't necessarily say they're a full CRM, because they might be an appointment setter, right? To set up your appointments. They might do your billing for you. That's not really a CRM. It's just like you said, providing one function of your business. So that's how I would define it. And for those that are using, industry specific things, it might be a good idea just to kind of write down a list of, what is this piece of software helping me do to run my business more efficiently? And what is it not doing? Where is it lacking? Because sometimes we can connect in one tool to another tool and build a suite of tools to help, for the greater good of the business.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any strong feelings about, because there's some CRMs out there who they do those three basic things, but then they also try to do many other things, and they're trying to
Yeah.
be almost like another acronym, ERP,
Hmm.
where they try to do everything. Um, and then there's some that try to be just very good at a particular set of things, and then
Hmm.
they have a really good integration component where they can
Yeah.
integrate well with others, so you can kind of patch together what you want to build. um like with things like Zapier, which is like basically helping you communicate between apps. Do you have do you have any preference, or do you find that one is better than the other, or is it just basically which is best for a particular situation? What do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, so what we'll do is we'll go through and actually, I was going to mention it later on, but there's a website we created called afterthelead.com. On there, there's a link to do we offer a free CRM fit assessment. So rather than saying one platform is good or better than another, is a little subjective without knowing specific needs and goals and challenges of a team. So, for example, something very similar or common with home service, you're going to have a lot of outside salespeople that are on the road. They're going in the car, jumping from appointment to appointment. They need a CRM they can access from their phone. because they're likely not going to go back to the computer, even if they have a computer at work or at home, and enter all their activity for the day, right? So sometimes when you buy software, you don't think about, okay, well, who's going to be using the software? What business challenges do I have? And how is this software going to actually help with those challenges? Um, and it's also about, the future, right? So you might have immediate needs right now, but then it's like, okay, well, what happens 2 years from now? You might have three trucks driving around, the three crews painting, but your goal is to have 10 by the end of next year. Well, if you choose a CRM today that can support your team of three, can it scale to support your team of 10? Because if it can't, then we both know, Daniel, moving from one CRM to another could be a pain in the butt. It's doable. We do it a lot, but it's not ideal. So you really want to start working with a product that you could grow into, and that you won't have to get rid of in a few years.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of folks see the value in getting a particular CRM, at least to solve their problems now, but you really should think, hey, this needs to not only solve my problems for the next 6 to 12 months, but how can it grow with me for the next several years,
Yeah.
so that I'm not
Mhm.
having to change CRMs every year, because that you probably, have to set up maybe some of those automations in the CRM. Sometimes CRMs have that automation capability, like you mentioned with email
Mhm.
campaigns, having to set that up. There's a lot of setup costs getting all your contacts in there. And then if you're switching again next year to something else, it's like you got to do that all over again. So, like you said, it can be pretty painful. So I like thinking about, like you said, the long term. Will this work for me for the next several years instead of just solving some problems right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's about like 30 to 40 questions that we go through to help, really paint the picture of, okay, what type of CRM or what specific product is going to be a best fit, once we kind of go through those list of questions, because a lot of them are not even obvious things, like even support, right? I mean, generally we find when there's like freemium versions or like very low cost CRMs, the support is usually pretty terrible, so it's like, who's going to help you, with that? Are they going to get on a Zoom call with you? Are they going to get on the phone with you? Is all the support via email, through a live chat? And so you really kind of have to evaluate, who's going to actually help you with the platform. And that's one of the things that differentiate us at Cultivize, Daniel, is that we do it all for our clients, meaning we come up with the strategy to evaluate their business, make improvements, to find the gaps in their sales process and their marketing, how we could tie all that together. And then we roll up our sleeves, we do all the work. We integrate the website to the CRM, we set up their sales tools, we load all their data in there, we clean their data for them, we teach them how to use it, and then we stay on board as a coach and active participant to their CRM. So every month we're working with our clients that we've had for years and still helping their team. Even that roofing company I mentioned, they came on board in May. We still have monthly calls with their sales team every month, for like a half hour, an hour, just going over things, seeing how things are working, what needs to be improved. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways, if nothing else, Daniel, from this conversation. Any software you have for your business, you can't anticipate and you shouldn't anticipate it just setting it up once and knowing that it's going to be perfect and you never have to go in and tweak it. It just doesn't happen that way. Business changes, industry changes, things change, right? So you really should be evaluating the CRM at a minimum on a quarterly basis, sometimes even on a monthly basis, depending upon what you're using it for, to see, okay, is this actually making an impact on my company or not?
Makes sense. So you guys at Cultivize not just provides, you don't just do support for CRM, you actually help with building the strategy. Okay, first of all, what problems are we solving? What would make the most sense for implementing software? How do we, and then you actually help integrate that, implement that software for them, and then make sure the team is trained up on that and on the process overall. Uh, and you provide that ongoing support and and actually help implement changes as you go. Am I getting that right so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if throwing a number out there, let's say it took 30 hours to set up a new CRM, we're doing 29.5 of those of that work. The only thing we really need from our clients is just input and information about the business, so we could put that into the process and make sure we're customizing the solution for them.
Got it. So you're almost like a fractional IT uh, service, like you're
Sure. Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
almost just helping implement that the CRM, providing that support integrations. So do you guys work a lot with tools like Zapier to kind of connect things if they have
Oh
several
yeah.
different systems?
Zapier is great. We love Zapier. We use that quite a bit. We also, Mike on our team did a lot of custom API development. So, like you mentioned before, ERP or this quoting tools, or they use QuickBooks for their accounting. So we can build custom integrations as well. Because the big thing about any business is your data is so vital and important. And if your data isn't clean, if it's not organized, and if you're not leveraging your data, you're really missing out a lot on the potential of the not only the growth of your business, but also just the way that your business operates and um, uh, the ease of leveraging that data. And so, yeah, that's a big part of kind of what we do is say, okay, like what are you doing now? Like how are you keeping track of everything? What runs your business? Um, and that's where like the early part of our evaluation starts is kind of looking into that first.
What are some when you're doing these initial evaluations with
Mhm.
business owner, businesses, home service businesses, what are some of the biggest mistakes or common mistakes that you see that something they're not doing or something that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing? Or if you want to take the other side of it, what are the biggest opportunities that they have to implement that can get them the biggest results?
I'll tackle both.
Okay.
So I think both are important. So,
Yeah.
we mentioned at the beginning of the call, or you mentioned, Daniel, is about, missed opportunities with marketing. And so I think that most of these home service businesses, like other companies, but I think more so in home service, they're spending a lot of money on marketing. Some of our clients are spending over $100,000 a year on marketing. And so not everyone does. Some might spend, a lot less than that, but you're spending something. And the problem is that they're not tracking where the leads are coming from. So something as simple as the phone rings, ring, ring. Hey, Daniel, how are you? Thanks for calling. Jason's painting. Before I get started, may I ask, how'd you hear about us? And then there should be a drop down menu in the CRM with all the marketing you do. Oh, Angie's List, Facebook, Google, right? Wherever it was, this is how they found out about us. And your CRM should be able to report on how many leads you're generating from all of your marketing channels. But not only that, how many turned into opportunities, which would signify what we said before, a qualified lead. So, for example, we see a lot of home service businesses doing advertising on platforms that generate a lot of leads, but they're garbage. The phone number's bad, the email address is bad. You call back 5 times, nobody answers the phone. So it shows us that that marketing channel is not the right platform for them. It also tracks to the revenue. So we know, for example, I'll go back, I'll keep using that roofing client as an example. He's got yard signs, he does direct mail, he does all these different things, radio, he's got, you name it, he's trying it, right? He's one of those people that just likes to kind of try different things. And we know his yard signs, I was looking at this morning, generated almost $350,000 in revenue for him. And we know that because either people said, hey, I saw your yard sign, or we put a special QR code on the yard sign. So when you scan it, it goes to a specific landing page. And when you fill out that quote request, we know you only got to that form because you came from the yard sign QR code. Um, and so doing that, to answer your question, has helped him have the assurance that he's making smart decisions about where he's spending his marketing dollars. The thing what happened, Daniel, when we started working with his name is Tom. Tom's whole thing was, well, Jason, I've been doing radio for so many years, I really don't want to let it go. Or I've been using TV for so many years, I don't want to let it go because my business is going to tank or it's going to drop off. And I said to him, I said, Tom, if I can prove to you that you're getting either bad leads or good leads from all these different marketing channels, and we track every single one of them, would you be willing to listen? And he's like, sure. And so within a few months, I'll give you an example of a story here quickly. So the company he had doing his marketing for his TV commercials said to him, hey, Tom, for an extra $1,500 a month, we'll throw up your ad on our website for our like local TV network, so to drive traffic to your website. And he's like, oh, that's great. Okay, sure, let's do it. Well, we gave it a few months. Guess how many people came from their website to his website?
I'm guessing
Zilch,
zero.
zero.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, I said, you're just wasting like 5 grand now, like, because you have this loyalty to them, but they're not providing anything for you, you know. Um, and there was another example with a pool construction company where they were getting a ton of Facebook leads. And I said to them, I said, these aren't really converting. Like you might want to talk to the marketing agency to figure out like what's going on. Well, unbeknownst to the marketing agency, for whoever, caused the mix up, they were targeting people that were 18 to 23 and 70 plus years old on Facebook to buy a $50,000 pool, which we both know they're not going to buy a $50,000 pool. And so that was just generating a ton of garbage leads that, and so without having that, they would have just assumed that the marketing team was doing a good job because, hey, we're getting all these leads. And so that's the biggest thing I think that for these home service businesses is to being able to track your marketing and be able to report on that is beyond a super important thing. But you mentioned the other part of this is like, well, what are the opportunities? And the opportunity really is having a visual pipeline, having a dashboard that says, here's how many in-home appointments we need to schedule today or this week. Here's how many appointments we went on. Here's how many estimates we need to put together. Here's how many were sent out. Here's how many that we are waiting to hear back from the customer on. Here's how many that we're into talks about, right? Here's how many that are on the back burner. And so if you have all those stages, nothing is going to fall through the cracks if you have everything organized. And I think that is the quickest ROI you can get from implementing a CRM that has that functionality. Because, like you say, you're putting all this effort in to generate these leads. And if you're doing a poor job at follow up, then you're really just leaving money on the table.
Makes sense. No, I that makes a lot of sense. So could you what was the website you mentioned that if is after the lead to basically get an assessment of the
Oh,
CRM?
sure. Yeah. You go
And
to, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Daniel.
I was gonna say we'll make sure that link gets in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So your audience can go as a kind of my gift to the audience listening today. You can go to afterthelead.com, just how it sounds. So afterthelead.com. On there, you can download our lead nurturing playbook, which is a guide on how to actually nurture your leads, and it lets you apply the principles we're talking about today and all the specific steps needed to virtually any CRM platform. You can also sign up for our newsletter. We publish a newsletter every week. Have tons of great resources about email marketing, about CRM, and all things related. And there's also an opportunity, Daniel, for your listeners to talk with me directly. So I'm all about education, all about helping people. So I promise it's not a sales call. I'm not trying to close you on that call. It's really a call to say, hey, Jason, I'm having these problems. These are the struggles I've had. What advice can you provide? So there's a link in there, complimentary to your audience. There's no fee for the call. So I want to kind of give those gifts away, to your audience today.
Awesome. Afterthelead.com. Sounds like you got some good stuff there. And I know a lot of folks that are listening have probably thought through like, what sort of CRM should I get? Does this work for my current situation? Is this really solving my issues? I know a lot of folks want that holistic approach, maybe not just a CRM, but how do I actually get it integrated with all the other things that I have going on with my time tracker, my accounting software, my production management software, because it's different than my CRM and all the other things. So if you're looking for help for that holistic perspective, definitely reach out to Jason and his team. Are there any other last thoughts you want to leave with the audience before I let you go today?
Well, I just want to say that, all these things, I think for some listeners today, Daniel, saying like, oh yeah, like that makes perfect sense. Like I could see how I could apply that. I'm sure maybe for some others, it's like, oh my God, it sounds so complicated. Like, where do I even start? And so there is something we actually just ready to release, which is a series of Google Sheets we've built that have built-in real-time reporting. So for those that aren't quite ready to step into what I'll define as we define today as a CRM, that's something also that I can share with your audience. It's just going to allow you a place to kind of keep track of all your leads, mark off where did they come from, which marketing effort. It's going to allow you to put all your sales into a pipeline. And so it's just a really simple way to get out of just maybe a very rudimentary Google sheet, if that's what you're using, that only has like information about like name, phone number, email, which at the end of the day isn't really that useful if you don't have a way to leverage that data. So that's something that I just wanted to kind of announce here. And it's the first time I'm announcing it to any podcast I've been on, because we're very close. We're about a week away from launching it. And it's going to be something that's going to be basically like, pennies on the dollar. It's like it's not a tool where we're looking to generate revenue from in terms of like a SaaS product. It's something we're just giving out there, Daniel, to help people that aren't quite ready to invest in a full-on CRM, but they need something more than pen and paper or a simple spreadsheet.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And we're recording this beginning of December, so this should release towards the end of December. So by the time it releases, it sounds like it might be released. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. So, and if you want me to re-record that part, I can, and just be like, "Hey, it's
No,
ready," and check it
yeah,
out. Yeah.
no, it's
Yeah.
all good.
Okay. All right.
No, I appreciate your time, Jason. And with all the listeners, I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.